Hi and welcome to Sparkle Chart.
Hi guys, I'm back with another journal page and today I'm going to use some of these gorgeous new stencils from Fowler, and it's just called the Fowler Face Series, and you can get yours from Artist Seller or directly from Lulu Art. And I'm going to use the side facing features. Now once again I'm going to be creating in my dilutions journal. I seem to be really enjoying the square format at the moment. Now I've just grabbed a pencil and I'm very lightly going to trace the stencil onto my page. Now there are some features I'd like to get the shape of, and there's other things I just want the outline of, like the face shape. Now the wonderful thing about stencils is they're just where your face starts, not where it finishes. So I'm just going to quickly use these to get the basic face shape, and then I can move on and make it my own. Now you can lift it off and have a look and see if you like what you've got. And I'm loving that. That is super cute. So that is a really quick way to get the basis of a really pretty face. Now comes the bit where you get to add your own flavour. And I'm going to make my face into Alice in Wonderland. I need to add some very Alice styled hair, and perhaps if I can add a hint of Alice's pinafore, then that will give me a bit more of an Alice kind of face. And we now have a somewhat starry-eyed looking Alice. Now I think in drawing my lips I've got them slightly off. I feel like they're a little bit, tiny bit too far over. Let me just do those again. There we go, slightly smaller, more Alice sized lips. So from that stencil I've got a fairly similar looking face, to be quite honest. I've slightly altered the nose and changed the eyes a little bit, but all of the proportions are in the same spot, and you can almost put this back over the top and see where it came from. Now comes the fun part. So what I'm going to do is put some clear gesso over my page, and that will sort of set the pencil in place, so I can then work over the top of it but make changes if I want to while still seeing the pencil. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is grab some Neocolor 2 soluble wax pastels, and these are heaps of fun to use. So I'm just going to do her hair in this. So I'm using both the yellow and the golden yellow just to do her hair. And I'm going in with the golden yellow. Now I'm adding this golden yellow a little bit heavier where the darker areas will be. Now you've got two options here. You can just use it as a pastel and just keep drawing and blending them as they are, but these ones, because they're water soluble, you can then go over with either gesso as an activator or water. I'm going to go with water and just activate these, and if you don't add too much water and scrub too hard, you can even still get some of the colour variation from the Neo colours. Now we all know Alice isn't Alice without her pinafore, so I'm going to use some sky blue, and I'm also going to add a touch of the periwinkle blue, which is a really pretty lilac colour, into the face to create some shadows. Now for this bit you might need some paper towel so that you can control how much colour you've got. If it gets too dark, just blot a little off. Now I'll have to admit that adding the underpainting looks a little bit scary, but using those Neo colours just to add that base colour gives you something to work on with the pencils over the top, and it means you don't have to do quite as much work. I'm now going to set my underpainting with some white gesso, and you can add as much or as little of this as you like, and basically all that means is it tones down the colours and mixes with those Neo colours a little bit to make them sort of a bit more sort of pastelish, and you'll find that then it's really easy to work with pencils over the top. Now I'm just working on my side of my other page here, mostly because I like to add a little bit of sort of one side into the other. So I'll probably do a little bit of scribbling on this side in the same colour Neo colours, just so that it sort of matches. Now I don't need to have it exactly the same, but just something. Now you don't actually need very much gesso for this, so just work slowly, and you can add as much or as little as you like to tone the colours right back or keep them bright. Now you can see the colour difference between here and here. It just knocks it all back and makes it a lot lighter. Now the gesso is also really a fantastic way to add highlights back into the hair. without having to fuss with too many colours. So to do that, you can either add a second layer of gesso to make a more white area, or you can just apply it more thickly on the first layer. Almost done with the gesso underpaint. Okay, and that's it for the hair. And that's added a whole lot of variety and dimension to the hair, so that no matter what I choose to do over the top now, it's going to look a whole lot better than that flat initial colour. Now it's time to do the face. Now I hope this stage you can see what I mean by the undertone. So adding the gesso over the top has lightened all of the colours back up, spread them around and blended them slightly. So you've got this fantastic sort of purpley base underneath, so that whatever I put on top is going to look just a little bit more interesting because it's not a single colour. I hope that's making sense. And what I'm going to do on this other side, just so it matches a bit, is scribble a little of the yellow, nothing too crazy, and not right next to it, but a little of the same blue that's in her dress. And add some of that clear and white gesso and then just paint it across. And that way it'll mix in with the paint and it'll create something a bit different for the background. So as I said, I'm mixing the white gesso and the clear gesso. And then I'm just going to go spread that across. Now I think you'll agree that it hasn't exactly added much colour to the background, but it has added a little bit of something just so it's not quite so white. Now if you wanted to add a little bit more, you can add your crayon to a piece of scrap paper and activate it with some water, and then just pick it up on your brush. Just add as much or as little as you like. Okay, for me that's just adding an extra element to the background there, and let that dry before going on. Now while the background is drying, which should be pretty quick, I'm going to use some light moulding paste and a beautiful Tim Holtz stencil to add some texture to the background. Now I'm going to need to do this in several sections because I have to wait for one bit to dry before I can add the next. Now before I started, I knew that I wanted to add some text somewhere around the middle here. So I've left this space empty on purpose, and I've just added the stenciling around the edge. All of my moulding paste is beautiful and dry, and you can see it just around the edges of my design here. And I will do something to make that a little bit easier to see later on. Now I'm just going to start outlining the face a bit. So I've got my Jane Davenport mermaid markers, and I'm going to be very brave for the first time and use these directly from the marker. No, I'm not. I can't. I'm too chicken. They're so strong. So what I'm going to do is dab them around on my splat mat and then apply them with my water brush, just because I'm a big scared cat. So I'm just going to apply a base colour of a very watered down, this one's called Beach, very watered down. And of course I will go and add some lighter areas onto this afterwards, but for the moment I'm just going to start with a base layer of this. Alright, so that's just a really light base layer of the beach colour. Now I'm just going to apply it slightly heavier, so without being quite so watered down, just to create some shadows. And I'm just going to employ my trusty paper towel to clean my brush between for any areas that are a little bit strong or that I'd like to blend out a bit more. Now I'm also just going to apply some of this through her hair. Now the other thing I'm going to do is just touch this in areas around here and then sort of squeeze my water brush a bit. Make sure I do that in a few different spots with the same colour. And then I'm just going to give it a quick spritz with water to make that bleed. And there's a few bits here that actually look a little bit dirty, just because of the pen underneath, or the pencil underneath I should say. I'm just going to wait for that layer to dry before I add any more. While the peach is drying, I'm just going to add some of the blue bottle. Now again, this is really strong, so I need to sort of blend this out on my splat mat here and just get it into a really light colour. Okay, so that's the first layer of the blue. Now again, I'm going to add a bit around some of these other areas and then spritz this so that it wicks. And some over this other side here too. Okay, now moving on to the beautiful coral. Now again, I'm just going to scribble it down on my little splat mat here and then use my water brush to apply it just in the areas and the strength I want, because if I apply it lightly to begin with, I can then make it darker and get a bit more control over exactly the colour I'm adding. Now I do want my girl to look a little cartoony, so I'm going to accentuate some things here, like the lip colour and the little rosy cheeks. Now while that's sort of setting, I'm just going to add a bit more of this colour around the top. So basically everything I add to the face, I'm also going to add to this little stenciled area. And I might even add a bit of that to the shadows down here. Don't want it to be too strong. And if I've added it down there, just a hint in some of those other areas as well. Oops, that was more than a hint, but I like it. Now what I'm doing over on the side here is just taking a little bit of it off the brush before I continue. And you see how it looks different over the peach than it does in the areas where I had nothing yet, so the lips versus the chin and the cheeks. Alright, so it gives her a nice little pink glow. So at the moment we're a little bit on the peachy side, but I do have some more bits to add to this. So I'm going to add a little of the mauve, which is jellyfish, which is just beautiful. Just to make sure the underneath is beautiful and golden. So I have to confess two things here. Number one, the background has worked beautifully. And you can see that the mermaid markers just spritzed over that gesso, or the mermaid markers spritzed over that texture paste, are looking so subtle and pretty, and some of it has grabbed a little bit of the texture paste and it is looking just beautiful. So my background has turned out beautifully. Alice's face, on the other hand, has achieved some interesting results. Not sure mermaid markers and Neo colours mix super awesomely together. Some things have turned out beautifully, like her eyes. The colour in her eyes is beautiful, and her cheeks, again, gorgeous, but the skin colour has gone quite strange. So, Ceram Coat acrylic paint can fix almost anything. Now, I'm not going to try and completely cover it up. I'm going to try and rescue bits of it. The mermaid marker in the hair looks amazing, mind you. Just the skin tone's a bit strange. So I'm just going to add a bit of this Ceram Coat with a small brush with short bristles, just so I can get a bit more of the colour that I might like. Now I'm going to keep my water brush on hand because at any stage I might like to spread some of this paint with my water brush. Now I'm just working with a colour called Santa's Flesh here. Bit of a strange name, but it's a nice pale colour. And if at any stage I'd like to lighten that, I can just go in with my water brush and spread it around with the water brush, which I think I might do, just so I've got a bit of that colour that I've worked so hard to get underneath. I don't want to cover up everything. Now when I start running out of coverage, I can go and add a bit more. Now that I've got that base layer down, the skin's still quite dark, but I'm okay with that. And I'm just going in and adding another layer of this Santa's Flesh in some areas. Back to trusty Mr. Gesso. Now, we'll all agree that's too white, but when you use the water brush with it, it turns that right down into a pale milky version that's much more forgiving. So what I'm going to do is I might just apply it direct from my water brush here to begin with, and then once I've got the colour lightened, I'll go back in and apply some more just with my paintbrush. Now, I didn't intend to add all these layers when I started, but it is giving a very interesting colour to the piece. So it's quite, I suppose, bold, but it's got lots of undertones. I actually rather like it. I like it when it's a little bit lighter, mind you, because at the moment it's still a bit dark for me. But all I really need to do is add a few layers of this milky gesso without losing too much of that background colour. Now you can see that gesso is really toning that down. Alright, so now that I've lightened up the face a bit, it's a bit difficult to see because of the shine, but it really has lightened up that colour. I'm just going to need to leave that to dry so I can add another layer without the two mixing together. Alice in Wonderland is a little bit crazy, so I'm making sure my writing is a little bit wonky to match. Okay, so it's taken a while to get her to this point, but I think you can kind of see where it's going now, and I like it. She's kind of cartoony, she's kind of cute, and I just need to add a few more little areas of dark and then a final layer of light, and almost done. Just to finish her off, I'm going to use some Prismacolor pencils just to add a little bit of extra definition. Now I've only gone and added an extra 4 colours here. I've used hot pink, salmon pink, normal pink and henna just to help add a little bit of extra zhuzh, extra definition. Now it's just a little tidying up and we're done. Gonna be brave here. Gonna add a little starfish, just a touch. Get some brightness back into her lips. Almost done, I think. I'm going to add a touch of Wink of Stella, just to give the little eyes a little sparkle. Now while I'm waiting for my face to finish drying, I'm going to add a touch of the white gold Art Alchemy Metallic Wax. Just using my fingers, just a little bit at a time, and highlight some of that texture. And now I'm going in with the rose gold and adding a layer of this just over the top, just to make it a little bit more pink.